All right, we're back once again. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast episode number 84. This week, my dog's flapping her ears. This week, still, like I said, just me. Maverick's out sick. And it's an audio only, still on some backup setup. Hopefully by next week we'll be all good. I don't know about Monday's episode for Scream. But yeah, it's getting worked on. Hopefully all this will be solved. But audio only for episode 84, which is VHS from 2012, which is kind of like an anthology type movie, where each like story is a different VHS and stuff. I know recently, I think there's 3 of these. Because that new one just came out, like VHS 84 or whatever. Yeah, really good reviews. And I'm not really sure what the opinion of this movie is. But me personally, I could do without it. I'm going to rock a 4 for VHS. The only tapes I liked were the first one that we get into with the group of guys taking the girls back to the hotel. I like the ending to the second one with the couple on their honeymoon, but then the rest of them kind of, and then it's one of those anthologies, much like the dark tapes back in the day, how there would be one story like running throughout the movie. And my problem was I was so interested in what was going on with that I didn't care about some of these shitty VHS tapes. And then when we got the payoff for the one that's throughout the whole movie, it wasn't a good payoff. It seemed lame to me. And so I was like, all right, well, thanks a lot for that. Oh God, my throat closed up. I'm dying. But anyway, spoiler alert for VHS. I'm going to ruin everything about it. So if you've never seen it before, you've been warned. The movie opens up with it opens up like a VHS tape with the fucking like the blue screen and everything. And it opens up and we're on super old VHS tape, like it's all grainy looking and shit. I don't know if they filmed it on an actual like VHS tape, you know what I mean? It might have just been like After Effects, but it looked cool. But we open up with this group of guys who go to a parking garage where a couple is walking, and they attack them and they film it, and they like pull up the girl's shirt and show her tits. I don't know where the fuck the boyfriend went to. I don't know if he ran off or if they were holding him so he couldn't get there, or what the deal was, but he's just sort of nowhere to be found. Also, there's 2 people filming during this, and it goes to one of their cameras, and one of their cameras is significantly better looking than the other one. Almost like it was a normal camera you would have nowadays. And I was like, are they just being inconsistent here? What's happening? So anyway, they leave that couple alone. I think maybe the cops are coming. So they leave, they go to like an abandoned school, and they're breaking windows and shit. There's like dicks drawn on the walls, And as this is all happening, there's like little cuts of this guy banging this chick on his bed, and he's like filming it. And then later she sees him filming it, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing." He's trying to play it off. And I kept waiting on what the payoff for that was. One of the guys in the group, the group that we're with right now, asked the guy, he's like, "What tape are you filming on?" And he's like, "I don't know, a tape from home or whatever." So I thought it was his sex tape or something. But now when we get to like the end of the movie, I don't think that's the case. But I don't know who that was. It might have been the honeymoon couple from the second tape, if I'm thinking about it. Because he tries to, in the second tape that we'll get to, he tries to like get her to make a sex tape with him, but she won't. So maybe that was it. I don't know, but that was a weird little inclusion. And Anyway, they go back home or wherever the fuck it is they're staying, and basically they're planning on what they're doing next. Apparently they film these things and then they sell them to get money. So they're talking about, we need to do more upskirts or, more assaults or something like that. Meanwhile, the leader of the group, I say that with quotation fingers, who has this rockin' mustache, so I just have him written down in my notes as mustache the whole movie. The whole time he's trying to get in a word, and he's like, hey, guys, listen, and they don't listen. So finally, he picks up his baseball bat and just fucking wrecks the TV that they're watching. And he's like, will you guys fucking listen to me? He's like, I know something we can do in one night that will make us more money than any of this shit you guys are talking about. And so they're like, all right, what? And he says that they have to steal a VHS tape. So they go to this guy's house, and they get there, and they're like, oh, it's this old guy, and all this shit. And I was like, is this Don't Breathe 3? Is this the fucking sequel? But yeah, they have to steal this VHS tape. They don't know what's on it. They don't know which VHS tape it is. They just, whoever the guy is that told Mustache to go get it says, you'll know it when you see it. Also, there's a line when they get there. It's like a fucking mansion. And I swear to God, the dude is like, I can't believe a N-word lives here. And I was like, oh, what is that? But then it ends up being like a white dude, so I don't know if I misheard that. There's a great possibility that I misheard that. It's not out of the realm of chance. Anyway, they get inside the house. They're walking around. They're being super quiet, to not wake up this old dude wherever he is. This one dude goes into a door and then jumps back out, and it's like one of them loud jump scares. I'm gonna be honest, it got me. There's one more scare in here that I thought was really good, and I have it written down in my notes somewhere, so I'll tell you what it was. But that scare was pretty good. I was like, oh shit. And when they go back in that doorway, we see what he jumped from was the guy who owns the house, the old dude, sitting in this chair, and he's dead. And he has like all these little TVs in front of him. They're all staticky, where he was watching VHS tapes and shit. So immediately they start yelling and stuff because they can be loud because this guy's fucking dead, And they call all the rest of the people in there, and they're like, all right, the guy's dead. We'll go look for the tape or whatever. But the guy who's filming, they're like, all right, well, you stay in here with him. And he's like, you guys are going to leave me with this dead fuck? And they're like, yeah. So they leave, and my God, let me tell you, this cameraman goes and turns around and goes to where the VHS player is. And he's looking at this VHS tape, and he's putting it in. But he's turned to where a dead guy is sitting behind him. And he's taking fucking forever to put in this tape. And it was super anxiety inducing. Where I was like, oh my God, please, just fucking hurry up. And he finally puts the VHS tape in. And then he sits down crisscross applesauce and turns the camera to where you can see him. And you can see the dead guy sitting over his shoulder. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck are you doing, So he puts on the tape, and this is when we go into our first story, our first VHS tape, which is probably the best one of the movie, in my opinion, where it's a group of 3 dudes, and one of them, who looks like he's fucking 12. I don't know how he gets into these bars that they go to later. I don't know how old he is. But he looks like he can't be more than 12. And he's wearing these fucking glasses. They're kind of like, funny enough, the glasses that the fucking nerd kid in Scream 4 that just came out earlier in the week was wearing, where it's recording everything. I don't know where the camera is hidden, because they look like a perfectly normal pair of glasses. But he's filming everything so they can remember their wild night, There's a lot of cuts of them just being obnoxious in different bars and trying to pick up girls and all this shit. Until eventually they get to this one bar where this one chick is like feeling the leader of the group of guys. And then the kid who's wearing the glasses turns around, and there's this one girl who's standing there, and she's got these really big round eyes, and she's just looking at him. And dude's super drunk, and so he's like, hey. And she just starts going, I like you. I like you. Like that. Like, that's how she talks or whatever. And I was like, oh, shit. And he was like, all right, I like you too, you know? But then, like, I think she just says it again, and he's like, okay, and he kind of walks off. And throughout the rest of the night, we see that she's, like, hanging out with a group of them. I thought that she was friends with the girl who was going to hook up with the main guy of the group. But thinking back to, I think she might have just been, like, a random girl. I'm not sure. And the only reason I say that is because then later, when the big reveal comes, you know, I'll say, you know. Anyway, they eventually get kicked out of this bar because they're just being drunk and obnoxious. They get in their car and they start driving back to the hotel room that the guys are staying at. And the dude in the back pulls out some coke. He starts doing coke. He leans over and makes the weird girl do some coke. This was the first time I noticed that, like, her head, she had like a line down her head, and it kind of, for me, I was like, does she have a cross on her head? But that was the first time I noticed that, and later that'll be explained. But they get back to the hotel room, and they're just sort of, you know, talking and shit. The one dude who pulled out the coke is sitting on the couch just giggling to himself. The leader of the group is on the bed with the chick he took home from the bar, and eventually he starts to make out with her. And they're gonna fuck. But she passes out. And the dude tries, like, shaking her awake and shit, because he thought he was gonna get laid. And fair play to him and his buddies, where his buddies are like, alright, dude, she's passed out, stop, or whatever. And the dude, like, tries to get her to wake up, but he doesn't go further than that, you know what I mean? Like, he tries to shake her and be like, hey, you know? But after it's clear that she's not waking up, he's like, fuck, and he just stands up, you know? So I appreciate that these dudes aren't, like, total scumbags. Like, they're just obnoxious, but they're not, like, you know, basically rapists. So he gets up. The dude is just laughing on the couch. And the dude who just got cock-blocked by his date falling asleep is like, will you shut the fuck up? And he gets pissed at him. The weird girl is on the bed with glasses. And she's doing the same thing where she's like, I like you, you know? And eventually the leader of the group of guys turns around and sees her. And he goes over to her and starts making out with her. And Glasses is like, what the fuck, you know? And he starts to leave. But then the dude's like, hey, where are you going? And so basically, these dudes are just going to run a train on her. Like, eventually the guy on the couch starts taking off his pants and shit. Also, the weird girl is, like, looking over to Glasses the whole time this is happening. And it's kind of like, hey, what are you doing? So anyway, he starts making out with her. And then he takes off her dress. And when he takes off her dress, Glasses looks down her legs. And we see her legs are like, I don't think they were hairy, but they looked like they had some pattern on them. Her toenails were sharp as shit. She had some weird fucking feet, right? And the dude is like, hey, there's some weird shit going on. And the dude's like, whatever, you know, he's not listening. And eventually, I believe the weird girl, like, takes control and flips the guy over onto his back. And so she's straddling him. And then she grabs Glasses and goes to make out with him. And as she opens her mouth, we see her tongue is, like, green and shit. And so it's like, what the fuck is going on, you know? So Glasses makes out with her for a bit, but eventually he's like, I gotta get out of here. I think when he turned around and saw the dude on the couch take his pants off is when he's like, I gotta get out of here, you know? So he goes to the bathroom. He's, like, washing his face. And then the next thing you know, the guy on the couch comes busting in, and he's like, that fucking bitch bit me. And his hand just has this fucking gash in his hand. And he's like, what the fuck? And so they turn around to look at her, and when they do, she just goes full on monster and starts like chewing on dude's neck on the bed and shit, and just fucking him up. And they're like, what the fuck? And so they close the door. They're trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, the dude who got bit grabs a shower curtain rod, and he's gonna use that as a weapon. They open up the door, and the weird chick is standing in the dark, like doing this weird like pose. And Glasses is trying to nudge the passed out girl awake to get her out of there. This is when I say, like, I don't know if she knew this girl, because I don't know if she knew about this or if this was just a girl who met up with them at the bar or what the deal was, you know. But he's trying to nudge her. And she's not waking up, so eventually the dude who got bit just charges her and hits her with the shower rod, but it doesn't do shit. So she jumps on him. Glasses goes jumping over the bed to the door, and he's like hiding behind the bed. And when he looks around the corner, he sees a shower curtain rod dude laying there and the girl on top of him, and she rips off his fucking cock and balls and just tosses them over, and there's just a wet flop as the dude's package just sits right in front of homie. And so that's the final straw for that dude. He's like, fuck this, and he goes out the door. He makes a run for it down the corridor, eventually gets to the staircase where he trips and eats shit, and we see his wrist, like the bone is out and shit, and he fucked up his wrist, and he's sitting there and he's like, sound like Peter Griffin in those fucking Family Guy episodes. And eventually, when he turns back around, the girl is now standing over him. And this is when we see why she had that like thing on her head, is because her head is like split down the middle, right? But she stands over him, and she goes, I like you again, you know? And she starts to like, it looks like she starts to blow him. But the dude's just crying and shit, and like, I get it's like a fucked up situation, but in that moment I was like, dude, it looks like you're in the clear. Like, this girl likes you for some reason. I was like, I'd play into, this shit. Besides like the gash in her head, she was still cute. I was like, come on, man, what are you doing? But he's crying and shit. So eventually she looks up and she's like, and so she starts crying. And, and the dude gets up and runs away while she's crying. And he gets to, like, the front desk of the hotel, and he's knocking on the window, but they won't let him in. But he turns, and there's, like, people standing in a truck right next to him. So he's like, oh. So he runs to them, and he's like, you gotta help me. And then the one dude standing in front of him goes, oh, my God. And the next thing you know, Glasses gets grabbed. And we quickly realize that he is now traveling up. And he looks, and the girl has like fucking wings and shit. And she just flies him up into the sky and then drops him and lets him fall to his death. And the tape ends, and we come back, and the cameraman is now gone. He's nowhere to be seen, but the dead guy is still there. So that was probably my favorite tape of the whole movie, which I'm not sure if she was just a monster or if she was supposed to be like a vampire or something. Like, I'm not really sure, but that was probably my favorite one. So now we're back in the regular timeline. Oh, stretch my leg. Back in the regular timeline. And Mustache and his dude are down in the basement, and they find like all the old VHS tapes, and they're like, oh shit, here they are. But like I said, they don't know which one is which. So they're like, all right, we'll go get something, and we'll carry these upstairs, and we'll watch them in those TVs, So one guy goes, and he's looking for a milk crate, and as he finds one, he comes back, but he hears like a clink clink of a bottle, and he turns around, and there's like a naked guy who just walks by real fast, and he's like, oh fuck. But here's my thing, is he still stays. He doesn't leave. He goes over and tells Mustache that there's a guy down here, and Mustache is like, no there isn't, and the dude's like, I'm telling you there is. But that's the whole fight he puts up. And I was like, are you fucking kidding? Like, get the fuck out of there, dude. Also, they never tell you who that dead guy or that naked guy is. I assume it might be the dead guy in the chair, or it might have been the cameraman that just went missing. But you never know for sure, you know. So anyway, dog's flipping her ears again. We go back to the dead guy room, and the new camera guy shows up and sees that his buddy is gone. He's like, "What the fuck?" Or no, it's just a guy walks in and sees the guy's gone, and he picks up the guy's camera. And he's like, "What the fuck?" But then immediately decides to just put on another VHS tape instead of like, you know, looking for his buddy who's missing. But he puts on the VHS tape, and like I said, this one's kind of a for me, but the ending I thought was good. And it also has like, it looks like a straight up snuff film at the end of this. Like, it's real brutal. That was is like this, and the first one had some really good effects, and then the next couple, like, all the gore and shit looks like the worst fucking made up bullshit ever. So I don't know if like they ran out of money or something after the first two, which I don't know how, because this one is kind of honestly boring as shit, but the ending is kind of cool. Excuse me. It's a couple on vacation somewhere in the desert. I don't remember. I assume Nevada or, you know, somewhere around there. They're in a hotel room and there's 2 beds, and the wife is filming, and she's like, "Oh, I can't believe we got 2 beds." And I'm like, well, y'all can still sleep in the same fucking bed. Just because it's 2 beds doesn't mean you have to use them, you know? And she's playing about how dirty the fucking place is and all this shit. That night they go to like this old west mining town exhibition thing, and there's one of those like old miner fortune teller machines, and she puts in $1 and they get their fortune, and the fortune was something along the lines of there was like you'll have a reunion with a loved one, a surprise reunion with a loved one that was lost or something, and someone will take advantage of your generosity, and there was something else about like not running your mouth too much or some bullshit, which apparently this fortune teller thing, it has to do with this VHS, but it also has to do with other ones, and I'm not really sure which ones it does, but you know, it's whatever. So they leave, they go back to the hotel room, and this is when I say the husband's trying to make a sex tape with girl, but she doesn't want to. It goes on way longer than it should, of him being like, "Come on," you know? And then in the middle of it, there's a very loud knock on the door, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And neither one of them really want to answer it. But eventually the dude goes and answers, and then he's on the bed, and the wife is filming him, and he says that it was a girl at the door who asked if he could give her a ride. And she didn't say where. She didn't say, you know, when or anything. So he's like, it's real weird. But they were like, no, you can't. So they film her, and she's like standing out on the road and shit. But then eventually they look out again, and she's gone. And the wife is like, should we call the police? And the dude's like, no, you know, girl, that's probably something that happens all the time around here or something like that. So they don't call the police. They go to sleep that night, and classic horror movie shit, the camera clicks on, it turns and films the husband, and then you knew it was coming. It slowly pans over, and it's filming the wife. So someone is in their hotel room. The person filming pulls down the sheet, and we see the wife's underwear, and then she pops open a fucking switchblade, and I was like, oh shit, and she like runs the point over the wife's skin, and the wife starts to move, so she stops. The person goes in the bathroom, and we get a quick glimpse of it's a girl. It's clearly the girl that asked for the ride, but she's wearing like a mask. And she had stolen some money from the family. She goes in there and she swirls the toothbrush around the toilet bowl and puts it back. But I was like, it's gross because it's a hotel toilet. But I was like, it's just water. Like, there's a lot worse things you could have done to that fucking toothbrush. But, whatever. Next day, they wake up. As they're driving, the dude says there's money missing from his wallet. And he's like, what did you do with it? And the wife's like, I didn't take it. And he's like, this wouldn't be the first time you decided to go on a spending spree or whatever. They go to the canyon or some type of desert hike shit. And while they're there, there's a part where the guy goes like around the corner and he's gone for a couple seconds. And then he comes back and he's like, oh, there's a girl over there having a phone call. But it's so quiet out here, I can hear everything she's saying. And then someone is like filming them. They give the camera to someone who films them so they can like pose in front of the canyon. Which once again, I assume is probably the girl who's doing all this. After that, they go back to the hotel. It's nighttime again, and it starts up where the camera clicks on and starts filming the husband. And I was like, all right, well, here we go, night 2 of this. And then the next thing you know, the fucking switchblade opens up again and just stabs the husband in the neck. And he just goes to town, like, keeps stabbing him in the neck. And he's making, like, gurgling noises and shit, right? After he's murdered, there's a bunch of flashes of the knife getting washed off in the sink, and someone is filming the girl who did the murder, and they turn the camera towards themselves, and it's the wife and the girl, and they're making out. So I guess this is like her lesbian lover or something. I don't really know how long these people knew each other, if this was all a setup, what the relationship was. I assume those people were married because I think the VHS tape is called The Honeymoon. But yeah, they kill the guy. There's a bunch of shots of them driving in the desert where presumably they dumped his body. And the girl's like, did you delete it? And that's the end of the tape. So all in all, it was short enough to not be a waste of time. And the ending was pretty cool. So I'd say that one was all right. But that would be the last one I liked, I think, in this whole movie. Back to the real timeline, and and the guy is standing there who was watching the tape, and he goes, what the fuck, And he leans forward and starts putting another tape, and when he does, the dead guy who was sitting behind him is gone now. So we don't even get a chance to stay there for more than a few minutes. We're immediately put back into another tape that the guy puts on. And this one is 2 chicks and 2 dudes who are going to this lake, the summer camp that this girl goes to supposedly every year, this brunette. So it's this brunette girl, this blonde, and then this like nerdy dude named Spider, and jock dude. But they go there. The brunette, there's a part where there's like a half of a wall or something, and she makes the guy film it, and she's like, oh, this is trippy. My friend fell over this and hit her head last year or something, right? So they film the wall. And then they find a tree that's like mushrooms are growing all over it. And so they're like running their hands up and down the mushrooms, and they're like, we could trip for days. And the Spider and the blonde walk away, and then the brunette turns to the jock who's filming, and she goes, hey, you're all gonna die out here. And he was like, what? And I was like, what the fuck? Just leave. You don't stay when someone says that, They go over to the lake. The blonde starts to smoke some weed, and Spider, the nerd, is like, are you guys doing drugs? And he's like, no, I can't do drugs. I can't believe you guys are doing this, So they're like, just take a hit. And he's like, I don't want to. You'll get the fear. The fear is when you do too much drugs and it just consumes you and, all this bullshit. So they're like, just do one hit. And so he's like, fine. Like, very easily, he goes from never wanting to do drugs, it's the worst thing in the world, to being like, okay. And then he takes a hit, and the jock is like, well, you gotta hit like this. And so they make him take another bigger hit, you know? So now they're sitting there, and the jock dude is like, hey, what do you mean when you said we were all gonna die out here, you know? And the girl is like, I meant what I said. And I was like, oh, fuck. She talks about, y'all wanna hear what happened out here last year about the 4 kids who were killed and, you know, all this shit? And they're like, what? But eventually she starts laughing. And they're like, oh, you were fucking with us. And Spider's like, I told you I should have never smoked that shit, the fear, you know? The jock dude gets naked and jumps in the lake. And he acts like he's getting attacked, but of course he's not. Classic horror movie shit. The blonde goes to walk off into the woods, and she takes Spider with her. And Spider has a thing for her. He's trying to get lucky with her. So he goes with her. There is a funny moment where she's like pissing behind a tree or something, and Spider's filming, and she goes, did you bring the camera? And he goes, no. And then she peeks around the corner and sees him, and he goes, yeah. And fucking, that got a chuckle out of me. But then she gets done, and she walks out, and she starts to do like something. She's like, this is a show just for you, Spider. And I think she might have been about to show him her tits or something. But before she can even do that, a fucking machete is thrown into her head, and it looks really bad. And that's why I was like, what the fuck? And they turn, and it's some glitchy fucking dude. It looks weird. It looks like if any of you ever saw Unfriended 2, the dark web, when the people who run the dark web would be on camera and it would go all glitchy. Somehow they could control the cameras, so you couldn't see them. That's what it looked like. And the dude's like, what the fuck? But before he can run, like, he's killed too. After he's killed, the brunette girl comes and finds the camera still that has blood on it and shit, and she's like, alright, cool. And she just gets the camera, and I was like, is she killing these people? What is she doing, you know? Also, throughout this tape, I didn't mention it because it doesn't really play a big part in it, but the camera, they be filming, and then randomly they would see, like, someone fucked up on the ground with, like, their head caved in, or there was a dead guy in the lake that the guy went swimming in and shit. The brunette girl goes back to the jock, and he's like, hey, where's Spider and the other girl? And she's like, oh, they left. Do you want to fuck? And he's like, what? And yeah, and basically she's like, come on, you want to fuck, you know? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And finally he's like, you were serious about all that shit you were talking earlier, weren't you? And she's like, yeah. She's like, basically she was part of the group of kids that got killed last year, and it was all her friends, and they never caught the guy. And she says, you know, the lake ran red with their blood and shit. And basically, I guess the story here is she used these people as bait to draw out the killer so she could kill him. The whole time she's telling dude this, the glitchy dude is walking up closer and closer behind him. And eventually cuts the guy's throat. So she makes a run for it. And she keeps looking back because she has these traps set up, you know, so she has parts of the floor that fall away, and the dude, like, starts to fall in it but manages to get out. He steps into a bear trap at one point, but then it's real fucking dumb because he steps in like a bear trap, and the girl walks up to him, and he's just like, and stabs her in the gut. And I was like, what? So she goes running away again. She's fucked up. She's bleeding. She goes and lays down under this, like, tree, and she starts telling the camera, if you see this, don't come here. And I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was like, am I supposed to give a fuck about this bitch dying after she just brought out these dudes to get killed for no reason? Like, I was, at this point, I'm rooting for the fucking glitch dude, you know? She looks over and she sees the jock dude stumbling around. He's still all fucked up. And she's like, hey, Joey, I think was his name. And he just sort of shambles over to her and dies. And over his dead body, you see the glitchy dude walking up to her. And right as he's about to get to her, he hits a platform that lifts up one of those like knife boards, you know, that sticks into his face. And she's like, I got you, you bitch. And then she's trying to film him, and she's like, why can't I film you, you know? And then she turns her head, and he's gone. I don't know how the fuck he got out of the board. I don't know what's going on. She looks, and he's up in a tree above her, and he jumps down and gets on top of her, and he hits her in the face a couple times with the camera before he stabs her and starts like eating her organs and pulling her organs out. And that's the end of that tape. And we go back, and the dead guy is back, but the other camera guy is gone. And that tape was a piece of shit, and it was a waste of time. I was like, alright, dude. So the mustache dude comes back. He sees that his friends are all gone, and he's like, or no, mustache dude comes back with the guy that was with him in the basement. And so he's like, all right, I'm going to go look for the other two. You stay here and start watching tapes. So the dude's like, all right. So the guy puts in a new tape. And this one was intriguing. And I'm not really sure what the fuck is going on in this one. But the tape starts off, and this girl is video chatting with her boyfriend, who supposedly is in Michigan. Apparently she had an accident last year. We'll learn a little bit more about how she like ran out into the street and got hit by a car or something. She keeps saying how she has this rash on her arm, and there's this bump on her arm and all this shit. And he's like, oh, you know, don't worry about it. And I think the boyfriend is like a doctor, because he keeps on being, well, I'll take a look at it when I get there, you know? So she's like, okay. And she like shows him her tits and, you know, all this shit. That night, she calls back again on her video chat, and she says there's something at her door. And she talks about her house is haunted and all this shit, right? Her door is open this whole time, and the camera is framing it perfectly over her shoulder. And my God, a fucking little ghost kid or something runs into her room and slams the door and scared the shit out of me. I was like, holy fuck. I had to go change britches. I had to go take a walk. I was like, Jesus Christ.
And I had to have surgery, and it was the first time we were apart since I was really little. Mm-hmm. I mean, now is the first time we've been apart since high school, and I just
Emily.
So the next day, this is where I was like, what the fuck? Because the next day she calls him back, and she's like, are you sure it was a kid? And he's like, well, it looked like it, but it could have been anything. It could have been the breeze. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That was clearly a little ghost kid. Like, and apparently dude films their conversations, but he's like, I didn't film this one, you know? Which, you know, we'll learn later is a lot. I was wondering, I was like, is he lying? Because we're watching this, so clearly it's recorded. Excuse me. Burp in your fucking ear, and then I'm like, excuse me. Like a fucking piece of shit. Nighttime comes again. He gets another call. She hears a noise. She goes out to investigate. This is when this bitch doesn't have a flashlight, so she's like, oh, hold on. She grabs a fucking camera and starts using the flash. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So she's flashing. Nothing's popping up. And then eventually, like, someone's standing there in their living room, and she's like, ah, and she runs back to her bedroom. The next day, she calls back again, and she's flipping out. She's talking about this bump thing on her arm, and she's like, I'm going to cut it out, you know? And he's like, come on, you're going crazy or something. So she starts to go to cut it out with a knife, but he manages to talk her down. He's like, listen, I'll take a look at it when I get there. You know, just don't do anything crazy. And so she's like, okay, you know? Nighttime comes again, and she calls the dude, and she has this fucking plan where she's like, I'm going to walk out there. I'm going to hold the laptop so you can see, but I'm going to close my eyes, And if you see the ghost, tell me, because I want to talk to him and ask him what he wants, but if I see him, I'm going to get scared. And I was like, fucking genius. I was like, holy shit, you're a genius. So she goes walking around. She doesn't see, or the dude doesn't see anything. And she's like, I almost feel disappointed, you know? But then she turns around and we see over her shoulder there's something. And the dude's like, hey, close your eyes. He's like, turn the camera, you know? So she turns the camera and there's like 3 ghost things looking at her. And they open their mouth and this one yells and this big flashlight goes off. And the next thing you know, it comes back and the camera's on the ground and the girl is laying face down on the ground. And out of the doorway behind her comes her boyfriend, who's supposed to be in Michigan. And I was like, what the fuck? And the ghost people are still sitting there. He comes over and starts to cut a line like down her back. And I was like, okay. And then the next thing you know, he pulls out a little fucking baby looking thing. And he tells the ghost people, he's like, you're telling me this thing's part human? And then they start going, and I was like, are they fucking aliens? I have no idea what this fucking tape is. If any one of you know, please, for the love of God, put it in the comments. Because I'm at a loss. I don't know what's happening. But he's like, I don't know how many times we can do this. It's going to kill her, you know. And he's like, I can work our way out of this. I just need to break a few bones. And so he like grabs her arm and breaks it and shit. So the next day she calls him back again. And she's in a sling and shit. And she says that the doctor that he sent her to says that she's schizophrenic or whatever. And that's why she keeps, you know, hearing things. And that's why she sees things. And, you know, all this shit. And she's like, I'm sorry, you can't be with someone normal and you're so good to me and everything. And he's like, oh yeah, you know. And then basically the whole thing starts over and she takes off her shirt again for him. And that's the end of that tape. And we go back and the dead guy is gone and so is the camera dude. It's just an empty room. And when Mustache gets back to see this, he's like, what the fuck? So he goes to look for the dude. He's walking through the house and he finds one of his decapitated friends. I'm not sure which one it was. But he's like, what the fuck? And then the next thing you know, the head rolls over to him and he looks and the dead guy from the chair is standing there. And the dead guy attacks him. And the dead guy has like some bloody looking carved mouth or whatever. And he kills him, basically. And I was just kind of like, all right, you know. And to me, what I took from that is this whole thing about there's a tape you need to get was just a setup because they're filming and this is just a tape that adds to this collection of tapes, you know. So that's what I think that whole thing was. But I'm not sure. I don't really know. But it kind of felt, I was really hoping for a big payoff, but it didn't seem like there was one. So after that, a new tape starts up, which will be the last one, where it's probably my favorite group of friends. They just seem like genuinely a nice pair of friends, and they don't seem like obnoxious or mean or anything. They just seem like cool dudes. And they're going to a Halloween party that night. The one guy who's filming is dressed up as like a bear. I think he's wearing like a webcam on his head. That's what they say he's filming with. One dude's a Marine. Someone else I think was Han Solo maybe. And then I don't remember what the other dude is. But they drive to this party. They have to wait on a train that's passing by at one point. And they're like, what the fuck, you know? And eventually they get there, but the place is haunted. And they're like, what's going on? But in the room next to them, the light is flashing on and off. And there's a chair kicked over. So they come to the conclusion that this is a haunted house. You know, that the one friend who's doing the party has set up. So they start walking around the house. Oh, excuse me again. Jesus Christ. They see a ghost girl on the stairs and shit. And they're like, oh, fuck, that was pretty cool. Because like I said, they think they're in a haunted house. They go upstairs, and the camera guy walks in the room, and as he passes the mirror, he sees a ghost sitting in the chair behind him. But when he looks, of course, there's nothing there. The lights go out on him. The door closes. But nothing really comes of this. He just goes and opens the door, and then his friend is there. And I was like, okay. Whole time this is happening, you can hear, like, some... At first, I thought it was someone with their mouth taped, like, you know, like that. But as it starts getting louder, it's like chanting. It's a chant. So the two friends go in the other room where they scare their other buddies, and this is when the yelling gets really loud, and they're like, what the fuck? Eventually, they find, like, this hidden staircase in a bathroom that leads upstairs to an attic. They go upstairs and they see this girl who's chained up, and like this group of 3 or 4 dudes standing around her. They're all chanting, and they're like, "Holy shit!" Because they, once again, they think this is just an act. It's like a haunted house actors, you know. So eventually, they start joining in on the chant, and the people doing the chant turn and look at them, and they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" You know. And they're like, "Oh, hey, sorry," and they're like, "You need to leave." And they're like, okay, you know. But then before they can leave, the one of the members of the guys who's doing the chant starts to get choked, and he's like, what the fuck? And then he just flies up towards the sky. Someone else gets grabbed and thrown back. Arms start coming out of the walls and shit, and they're like, holy shit. So they go running, but before they leave, their conscience gets to them. They're like, we gotta save that girl that's up there, right? So they go. They untie the girl. The other dudes get in a scuffle with the remaining group of satanic people, whatever they were. And they get grabbed by ghosts. They run out. Doorways start closing and shit. And they're like, what are we going to do? But eventually they manage to go into the basement and get out through like the cellar door, you know? So you get outside. They get to their car. And they get the girl in the backseat and they start driving, and they're like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? You know? Eventually the car stalls, and they're like, start it up, you know? And the dude's like, I can't. And then there's like I don't even remember what happened. There's like a flash of light or something. And when they look, the girl in the car with them is gone. And they're like, what the fuck? And they look, and she's standing outside now. And now she looks like evil and shit, right? And so she like hits the side of the door, and then she goes and stands in front of them and looks at them. And they're trying to start the car, but they can't. And then they notice where they are, and they are on the train tracks. And a train is coming towards them, but they can't open the door. The doors are stuck. None of them try to kick out a window, though, which I thought was kind of weird. But they don't open the door in time, and they're hit by a train. And that's the end of VHS, is with that group of kids getting hit by the train and killed. This movie had a budget of $242,000. Made a box office of $1.9 million. So I will give them this. The movie looked... I mean, it didn't look good because it was all on VHS tape, but like it looked good for $242,000. You know what I mean? But yeah, I didn't. I don't know. Like I said, the first two, the gore in it was really good, and then like the last couple, especially the glitchy like sort of Jason ripoff VHS tape, was really shitty looking. And I don't know what the deal was about it. Best of, worst of. My best of will be the guy getting his cock and balls ripped off in the first VHS tape. Because you don't see that every day. And I was like, holy shit, when that happened. Worst of will just be that summer camp VHS tape. I hated it. It was so stupid. The gore was bad in it. The killer was bad. I don't know what the fuck it was. Yeah, I just hated it. So that'll be my worst of. But But anyway, I'm interested in watching the sequels, maybe, because Scream 5 is going to be Monday. So maybe I'll throw on VHS 2 and VHS 3, and we'll knock out the VHS series, you know? I'm interested in seeing I know VHS 2 has like a super famous, I think it's like a mass suicide fucking VHS tape or something. But I'm interested in seeing those, even though I didn't particularly like this one. But it piqued my interest, so I'll probably check out the other two. And yeah, but anyway, that's the end of VHS. Next week, I'm not sure what it is. It's Maverick's pick. I think he should be on the next episode. But if he doesn't pick, and it's just my pick again, then we're going to watch this movie, which I'm not sure what the name of it is. Oh, the next movie will be Chernobyl Diaries, if Maverick doesn't pick. So, look out for that. But, yeah. Also, shout out to the Washington Commanders. Oh, boy, that was the first time I've said it out loud. I don't like that at all. So, that's fun. Go see Jackass Forever. Shout out Jackass. I think it comes out the 5th, maybe. But go check that out. I'm gonna go see Scream tomorrow to get the Monday episode ready. Obviously, this episode comes out Friday, but I'm recording this before Friday. But I'm gonna go see Scream tomorrow. I wish the Jackass was already out. I would do a double feature. But tomorrow I'll just see Scream. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Next week, like I said, it's Maverick's pick, but I don't know if he's picking, so it probably or might be Chernobyl Diaries. But anyway, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff if you haven't already. And yeah. Also, remember Scream 5 when I said that the Texas Chainsaw poster looked pretty good or whatever? Then the trailer came out and I don't know. I don't know. Also, I read apparently it was supposed to come out in theaters and then the people quit because of rewrites and all this shit. So there's a very good chance that this movie could be a shit show. But me and Tyler we'll watch it. We've already discussed doing the episode for it. So when that drops, look out for that. But yeah. Alright, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for listening and watching. And I will see you guys Monday for the final Scream episode with Scream 5. Alright.